everyone's kind of looking around going, oh, everyone's waiting for permission to speak, basically, in those spaces. And it's crazy. And my main experience of that, so I used to work a lot in Asia, including, and lived in Indonesia and Thailand. And this was the kind of feeling, if you talked about the king in Thailand, at a bar, everyone would look around and be like, oh, just don't speak too loudly, or hey, everyone put their mobile phones somewhere, or because everyone was like, and I was like, okay, you never did that in the West. And then now I see that all the time here in the West, where everyone is essentially looking around. They're not necessarily looking around for the government, they're looking around for the person at the table next to them.
How does it work? Hello, my name is Robert Cibis. I'm extremely pleased to sit here with Andrew Lowenthal, or Lowenthal. I know Lowenthal. I'm sorry. I'm bad with German words in other languages. And he is an activist for a long time, even though he looks like being just out of high school. And you observed, in fact, the digital media world for about 25 years, didn't you? So, and now you have a strong focus on free speech and censorship. And you lived in many countries, and you just created a new NGO after having built up one which is still thriving. So please tell me, how did you get into this?
I guess I got into it there was some natural sense of disliking injustice and disliking untruths, and I guess a search for meaning on a more kind of personal psychological level. And so I got involved. I was thinking, I saw a lot of problems around me in the world. I lived in Argentina when I was 18 and was very kind of confronted by the kind of poverty and the economic conditions and the social strife. And as a kind of naive Australian who'd grown up in a quite nice middle class household, this was quite this is new, and I guess fit a lot of the narratives that had come from my kind of father and grandparents as well, in terms of thinking about also Germany's past as well, because they were German. And I think this just kind of led me to kind of go out exploring and try and understand how I would understand the world and how I would act within it. And I had a kind of immediate attraction to, I guess, a kind of left-wing activism.
What is left-wing? I mean, what
obviously it's completely different, I think, now.
But at the time?
In the 90s, it meant you were for free speech. If you're into things like technology, then you're into things like free and open source technology. You were talking about economic disparities as probably one of the biggest issues. You were certainly anti-war and kind of anti-military, industrial complex. You were, I guess, radically egalitarian, but you weren't for kind of this new equity kind of thing.
What do you mean with new equity?
Well, equity, I guess people talk about equity being equal outcomes, whereas equality is equal opportunity. So, I mean, unless you went full communist, I guess, then you might go there. But even I think the people I would know at the time then who would probably call themselves communists wouldn't be interested in the kind of what is called equity today, because they would have a much stronger focus on the economics. The economics was the kind of primary driver, along with anti-imperialism, anti-war, free speech. So that was the kind of normal thing. I mean, obviously, there was other stuff. There was a kind of 90s and early 2000s feminism, which was quite kind of, I guess, normal maybe normal is the wrong word, but it made a lot of sense in terms of the kind of history, and it all kind of, I think, fit together in a way that wasn't too strange in the way that I think it is now, and very kind of muddled up, and we see a lot of those positions actually being the opposite: pro-war, anti-free speech, pro-discrimination, on depending, on what it is, or as it used to be, anti-discrimination. This is the left of today.
Yeah, I mean, it's like if we use the labels they use, then this, what you just said, is correct, I would say. Because how do you define groups if not by their own words?
Yeah.
So, but this is still mind-boggling, because I know people who are from the left who would say they're anti-war, they're against discrimination, and maybe they even would stress that all people should be treated equally. Mm-hmm. I'm not sure of this, though. I mean, it depends on the age, probably, I know some people who are older than 70 in Berlin who have been leftist activists for all their lives. They would say it. They would say, we don't go along with the left, which is on TV, which they say is the left, But younger people, maybe, they would say, no, it's very important to treat women differently, or people of color differently, or whatever group it can be.
Yeah. I think it was always that you factored in the disparities, that there were disparities, but you didn't kind of turn it into something structural. It was just kind of a note. Okay, just let me make sure if I'm facilitating a meeting that, it's not only the guys who are speaking, and I just, watch the room to make sure we're getting other voices into the conversation. It seems entirely reasonable. Even if it was a group of only men, that you would just want to make sure that the quiet men were also saying things. They might have something to say that was quite important. They just might be a little bit more shy. You want to make sure you're capturing the best possible knowledge and analysis of the problem you're trying to deal with. So this didn't seem like some kind of, crazy top-down rule that was you weren't kind of counting exactly. You were just generally trying to give a nice kind of collective feel to the group that we're all doing this, and it's not just a few people dominating the conversation. You weren't going to get the best result. But it wasn't this very strict thing that I think I see now.
I mean, in a way, I would just wonder what is still similar if you take these definitions. I was saying to myself, maybe the idea of a community, to be, this is like the left thing, and the right thing would then be, no, we just are, it's family, and it's myself.
So
it's
yeah,
freedom.
I think that.
That's like the juxtaposition, which is still somehow
that
valid.
Left was still quite pro immigration as well, and so the left now is still quite pro immigration.
Yes.
I mean, that left was also very pro LGBT and et cetera, et cetera. It's just that the form of activism around those issues has
I think it's
changed.
like if you push things too far, they become the opposite.
Yeah.
You fight for equal rights for women, which is of course a wonderful thing. But then if you push it further and say no, they need more rights, and men are bad, then I said no. Then I want to protest. I know nice men.
I know one or two. So something changed. Well, I mean, I think the main change was that people swapped freedom for security, right, or for safety, and this reorientation.
But is there some correspondence to left or right with freedom and security? These juxtapositions.
Well, I mean, if you look at the war on terror, then it was the left who was mostly out there saying, no, we need to have freedom. Yes, there are some risks to terrorism, but actually it's better that maybe something bad might happen, but that we all get to preserve our freedoms, and maybe don't racially profile people. Yes, maybe some people might get in and there'll be some bad actors, but we're willing to take that risk, essentially, because there's this higher principle of non-discrimination and freedom. Yeah. And then at some point, probably the real catalyst was around Trump and Brexit, the kind of priorities kind of shifted around.
That's a very interesting observation. I completely agree. And I think in that sense, it obviously depends on who is, running the narrative, but I don't see such a big difference between Trump and the predecessors. I don't know. I mean,
Between Obama, with Obama.
yeah. I mean, maybe please, yeah, explain to me, please.
I mean, I think I would say there's a radical, well, on foreign policy, I'd say actually there was a radical difference. Actually, Trump was, and this is again, with my background, Trump was very anti-interventionist, and Obama turned it out to be really quite hawkish as well. And I think probably there's some changes there where it's a little bit Nixon goes to China phenomenon, where actually, in terms of the forever wars, the Democrats are actually kind of better at prosecuting forever wars because they disarm the anti-war movement, because the left will be less likely to protest Democrats than it will be to protest Republicans. So they're a better vector for forever wars.
Yeah, it depends on. Yeah, I understand that. I mean, yeah, and I understand that. But at the same time, he didn't start a war, but there were many wars still going on with Trump, and he started the war on its own people with the COVID crisis.
Well, yes, he didn't.
So in a way, this was a very big military operation against not just the people of the United States, but of all people in the whole world, even. And today we know he was in charge. He was not. Who knows who else? Influenced in this. I cannot tell all of this, but for sure, nothing really happened with the Department of Defense which he wasn't aware of. I would guess.
Wow. Yeah, I could only guess as well. I guess there's the narrative of that there were people undermining him everywhere, and therefore he didn't know. He got tricked. I obviously don't know if that was true. I think he was against some of it, the masks and to my understanding, to a degree. But yeah, fundamentally he went along with it all and enabled it, and the warp speed and
traction.
Everything.
I mean, the Operation Warp Speed was pushed by the Trump administration, and not like they followed other countries or so.
Well, and Democrats got up on stage and said, "I'm not taking the Trump vaccine."
Yeah, exactly.
And then,
so
5 minutes later.
So I think this is why I already have this confusion. I don't even know what word to use, whether it's left or right, and what is what, And I see, because